What's good? What's good, boys? Welcome back. Welcome back. Race Pace podcast, and
And
I'm
Sappy's
here with
back
the
again.
boys.
Oh,
I
never mind.
went to the Shadow Realm briefly. Sorry, just had to check on a couple things. Um, how we doing?
We're doing great.
Yeah, I'm doing
HTCC
good.
happened. Yeah. And I died in it, but that's for later. Yeah. Doing great.
Great energy, guys. Great. All right, that's the show.
course.
Thank you for joining us. See you in 2 weeks' time. No, awesome. I do have a couple things on my mind. Mainly in regards to, well, a couple things. Street Wars is cooking, but we'll get to that. Street Wars
Okay.
is cooking. Of course, we've got a few stuff. Yes, words hard. Why say many when few do trick? But Racing Haven, we've got a few things cooking as well, have we not?
Oh yes, we do.
And then, of course, you've got a few things that are on the horizon as well. Like I heard there's a couple of different racing series popping up here and there.
Yeah, definitely. Like HTCC, right? I don't know if we talked about HTCC actually.
I know we we gave it like cliff notes,
Yeah.
but we didn't actually dig into it like right proper.
Yeah, I've seen the racing was actually very close, right? It was I think it was people like Suimin, Breezy, Deco. Like the times were very close because the cars are very very close in pace. These are like the TCR cars that were added to the game.
Yeah, this is probably where you can educate me a little bit because I'm a tad out the loop.
Okay, so for people that don't know, HTCC basically, I think it's 4 races on custom tracks. I think it's Blue Lagoon, Edo Circuit, Hoki's own Tsukuba, because it's Hoki's event, HTCC. And it's in the touring cars that have been added into the game. They are spec built, open tuning, just your basic TCR stuff. And yeah, it's kind of a heat system. You qualify and then you race. I don't actually know how long the races are. I don't remember. But it's very close racing stuff. I would compare it to a Toyota thing that we hosted back in the day. Very very interesting and very. I don't know. I don't do front wheel drive. I really suck at those. But for the people that do it, I mean, more power to them. You know, it seems very fun. The tracks are also very very good because Edo Circuit, amazing. Tsukuba, I would say very very well, very good recreation. So I tried it on iRacing and it's close. It's very good. Yeah. So I don't know how much you guys know about the whole thing.
I mean, right out the gate, the track picks, instant W on that alone. You say Edelman, one of the, I'd say in terms of like official routes and like racing air quotes routes, and you're going for custom terrain, Edelman knocked it out of the park. I've driven on Edel Circuit, and it is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. Same goes with
50 hours? Was it 250 hours?
I want to say 250 hours. I mean, there's millions of good tracks out there, realistically. I mean, you've got some amazing track builders. Cosworth's a really good one. You've got, say, Grumpy Cooks as well. You've got quite a lot of track builders, but say, the level of like detail as well.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, say Hoki as well with his own scuba circuit. There's actually, really good recreation. I've got to say, the track selection, I haven't tried either of the cars because I think it's 2 main cars out of all of it. It's like the Cupra, not the Cupra, the MG X Power, and then the Lincoln Co 03 Plus, both the TCR variants.
Which got the top 4 positions, because I have the standings right in front of me right now. Green one, Ad got second, Xander got third, then Birdie, Breezy, Suimin, etc.
Top drivers.
Just wanted to, top drivers actually.
Yeah.
Suimin has been popping in and there, here and there. kind of getting back into the groove, and it seems like he's been doing better and better with everything he's dipping his toes into. I don't know. Maybe maybe he comes back to the top. We'll see.
I mean, Suimin's history in FH5 is just like it doesn't appear much. I mean, he had that early stint where he was always around. It doesn't appear much now, but when he does, you know that he's gonna bring the cooking. He's gonna bring the whole kitchen. He's not messing around when he gets involved in an event. I mean, look at do you remember DJS's Wipeout challenge?
Oh yeah, he won that one, right?
Yeah, he won that. He just
By like a lot.
He just clean won that. Like that, his run was insane. Like you see the level of tolerance on that run, it was absolutely insane.
Actually, there were some cheated times there, right? If I remember correctly, in the DJS thing. They were asked to provide a video and they weren't able to. I don't quite remember what that was.
Yeah. If I remember it correctly, basically the top, I think it's top 20 times required video proof, basically is an anti-cheat measure, because initially they had a couple runs that were running like extra grip, or they fudged the PI numbers to run them out of spec. How I did it, I don't know. To be honest, if we knew how I did it, probably wouldn't have happened in the first place. But the matter is, they did it. That was the countermeasure, and it worked.
Yeah, that's kind of a. I was gonna say, regs in FH5. If you want to make a regulated event, it feels like a very difficult task because our HTC, like our own event, it's hard to mandate certain parts because obviously we try to do the Horizon semi-slicks, the things that are very visible, like the Forza Aero and things like that. But there's always this this margin of maybe someone could make his car make the car have more power, and way more. I don't know, whatever.
You can definitely squeeze. You definitely can squeeze it out. I mean, like
it's difficult.
You look at even something so subtle as like you have visual elements, but there's a lot of stuff going on under the hood too. I mean, you think, for example, Warner, you're gonna have to forgive me here. I'm really pulling off a band-aid. Team Rev VVT. I'm pulling out that one.
Yeah.
So basically, we ran a dirt race against VT. That was a time. In the end, we had a guy in Team Rev who unfortunately was running an out-spec tune, but it took basically a private investigator's worth of effort to get it detected. How it got detected was about this much extra on the tire, like the tiniest extra track width that people, to be fair, were very perceptive. They managed to pick up on.
So in a video, or on the stream, they saw that there was more tire width, or?
It was before the race. So before the race, people were lining up cars, and because this person had sort of like a little bit of a history, somebody lined their car up next to his, and they went into photo mode and took a picture of the tires next to each other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it was also sort of modified parts as well to the same PI, so he had a little bit extra towards the end of the straight, whereas the other cars didn't. Some people might say slipstream. It was not slipstream.
Oh, there was another count of that. I think that was an RRT race with someone, where one person had a tune with more power on the 2000 GT. I feel like it was actually on the Tsukuba circuit. Ended in a ban, obviously. But this one is because it's all up to the driver that's doing it, right? Because you can have cheats that are kind of undetectable or pretty much undetectable, especially if you're a good driver. That's an issue in sim games right now. That's why the PR is dropping, as we know, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys heard. Of course, everyone heard.
Yeah, the problem is especially at the community level where we currently sit, you kind of have to rely on the trust system. There's no real way around it without having, well, we'll call it intrusive intrusive systems that allow you to detect, say, certain modifications, things like that. And without systems in the game to restrict things like tunes, like you can't get specific tunes on a car. You can't say, okay, you can run a 488, you can run I don't know, an Aston Martin, you can run this Ferrari, this Lamborghini, but they have to be these specific share codes. Why they don't do it, I can
You
see
can
both
in
sides.
motorsport.
You can, but
Right.
why they don't do it, I can see a couple logistical issues.
Mhm.
Basically, the big thing that came into my mind is you put up a track and it requires a certain share code. What if that person pulls the tune?
Okay. Yeah, that is actually an issue too.
You've kind of just you've kind of nuked your BP. So either there has to be a fallback, or you've suddenly not got a blueprint anymore, and you can't go in and edit it and test it because you've set up the rigs for this specific tune. You're
Yeah,
kind of
I don't know.
boned. I'm
It's
gonna be
a
honest.
yeah, it's a completely different conversation when we were talking about modifying the build and actually running external programs, right? Because pretty sure. But yeah, in FM7 or I hope in FM8 as well, you can check the tune that the person has on. So that's obviously way easier to run spec tunes, spec builds, whatever you want to run. But yeah, how do you fix that in FH5? Do we just keep relying on the trust system? Because it's ranked systems are coming, and we don't know how to mandate some things. It's difficult, right? I think Warner wanted to.
Maybe something that the game developers could think about is if they're giving us the option to do custom races and custom BPs, it could be an option for there to be like a slider thing to say, is it spec parts? And if it is, the game just automatically reads all the cars and what parts they've got on, and any cars that don't have that part on, they just kick out.
I think we talked about this in the Super 7 conversation, right? That you can mandate mandate builds so that thing is in the game. Maybe that's the thing that could be implemented.
Yeah. It just gets messy once you start factoring in multiple cars. Like the level of setup and granularity on it is going to get a little bit messy. So it works for Super 7 because it's in isolation and it's one single car for this specific challenge. You can basically lock in everything all the way down to the tune. And we did touch upon that when we talked about Event Lab versus like Super 7. But getting back to the main point, without those kind of systems in place, without anything external of the game like anti-cheat, we'll call it aggressive, without things like in-game settings to lock down tunes, FM7 does have it in the form of homologation to an extent. But yeah, we of course don't have that in H5. You kind of don't have a choice but to rely on the trust system. Now, the top drivers are where they are because they've grinded as hard as they have, and they're also very perceptive and are able to see right through any nonsense. I'm being funny, but part of the trust system is that not only trusting people to do the right thing, but trusting those at the top and those in the community to point out when someone's doing the wrong thing. And I think, to its credit, it has worked out fairly well on that front.
Yeah. To be honest, the image of FH5 as an esport, or even FM7, to be honest, but that's a different thing. I feel like lack of systems like that, and the aforementioned many times split times, it's kind of holding it back, so to speak. I don't actually know what happened to FM7. Like, why isn't it an esport anymore? Because it died very quickly, right? I mean, you can consider it an esport, but it's very niche. Because there was the FRC thing, and it feels like, it feels like it just died by itself. I don't know. Is it like lack of advertising? Is it just lack of interest? Because I know some top drivers raced in that, but it just died very, very quickly. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I know that it had a decent amount of success in its runtime because I think it's around 2017 to 19.
Yeah.
I want to say, but because this is where it gets woolly for me, because I did a lot of research on it, but I never was actually deep in the community. I wasn't air quotes there. I know that it was fraught with controversy at times. Like it had its fair share of issues. So like the first year it ran, one of the big headlines I remember was not that Forza is getting official esports, it's that Forza top drivers were abusing the heck out of Monza track limits. And that is, in fact, how we got, the lines on the side of the track, the little
Yeah.
triangles on the side of the track. That's how we got those.
Oh, really?
As
I didn't
yeah,
know that.
it was a direct response to esports drivers basically just abusing and cheesing the heck out of track limits. Like that's what prompted that update, that clarification.
Which are still pretty bad, and the devs admit it. The track limits, they are like very restrictive.
Yeah. Are they perfect? No. But
no. Yeah, exactly. And you can abuse track limits in games like ACC as well a lot. You can basically go outside of the track as long as you're touching the curb. So I don't know what the fuss is about. Maybe I don't know. I don't think that's what's holding it back though. Like, what is it? Is it the controller feel of it, like the lack of the sim feel? Because it's a very accessible game, right? So it feels like it would be easy to turn it into an esport.
I think actually the accessibility aspect of it being on controller, I am going to go out on a limb here. I say that's its biggest strength, not its weakness.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Like, I know I heard some criticism in the past. It's like, well, it's not simmy enough for people to take it seriously. It's like, no, it's the complete opposite. It doesn't diminish the level of skill that's involved in the game. It's just in a more accessible format. Not everyone has 2-3 grand to spend on a top rig, like with direct drive, proper force feedback simulation and everything. They don't have that kind of money. It's just that simple. So controller as an esport, it's insane how many doors that opens. I think really what broke it per se is, I think, the marketing and how they went to go about marketing.
Yeah, because I was gonna say like games like F1 and Gran Turismo, which can be played on controller. Obviously, with Gran Turismo you have like more tire wear. With F1, it's harder to be consistent. But those games are playable on controller, and they are not quite sims. Especially F1 has been going towards the more arcadey feel, and yet again, it's not an issue for them, and it's an issue for FM7 because F122 is very prosperous as an esport. We hear it everywhere. We hear about it everywhere. I don't know if it's because of the cheating controversies or is it just a popular thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of a placebo effect.
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, the league racing scene's kind of got a little bit fed up of the broken game state of F122. At least the copium is activated for F123, but given that they missed the fictional team reveal, they missed the time deadline by 10 minutes, and then the May 1st reveal was a reveal that we're getting a May 3rd reveal. So at the time of recording this, it will be tomorrow, not on the Monday when we plan to talk about it. Sorry, a bit passionate there.
Yeah, I get it though. I get it. I would like to know some more as well.
Yeah, it's just a difficult spot. A lot of leagues are very happy that we're done with F122, and we're hoping at the very least, because it is basically confirmed to be on the same engine. It's not going to be an overhaul, not by any stretch.
Oh yeah,
it's on the same engine. It's still on last gen consoles. It's in fact, I'm going to hazard a guess here. It's going to be a carbon copy of 22, but with a new HUD and a couple new features. I know that red flags have been confirmed. Red flags are finally back. Took them long enough.
Okay.
And also that we're getting some like adjustments to race distance. But really, I just hope, and this is a problem with all, I'd say, racing games, especially in modern age. Where's the polish gone? Where's the QA department gone, man?
I mean, to be honest, ACC and iRacing are doing very well with the polish, but they are like fully fledged sims, right? We have things like Rensport coming out, and competitions already held in it. And our fellow Forza community member, Der McCormack or Hydra, winning already 2 races in a row, or is it 3 now? I don't even know anymore. Those games can do it. Those games can be polished. Although I heard Rensport is a bit of a, it's a bit slidey, and the physics are still gonna get adjusted. But nevertheless, I think it's the marketing, like you said. It's just has to be it. Maybe because FM7 is old, and when the new game comes out, we'll get some more traction in that regard. But yeah.
I think the other thing that we kind of not factored into all of this is as soon as the game reached, well, end of life status, it was no longer being sold, DLC was no longer coming out, it was officially like taken off stores. They cannot support the game anymore from that point. They are literally bound. Their hands are tied. They cannot support the games anymore, and that includes the esports scene. So, see, it came to a close in 2019. That was the last Forza RC, and then from there, I can't remember when was it the FM7 got declared end of life. I can't remember off the top of my head.
19?
Was it 19 as well?
No, maybe not. Maybe like
I feel like it was.
That was later.
No, it was much later. It was much later.
Later. I think it was 21. Actually, yeah,
Yeah.
21. End of 21.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, they wound it down from that point on. They kind of let the community take the reins, but they literally, from that point, as soon as the game is declared end of life, they have to be like, that, hands off, completely.
No, it's dead completely.
Yeah, like we're focusing on the next game. Communities, feel free to run stuff, but because we're not selling the game, it wouldn't be right for us to like support it and put all this effort in, because it's a marketing exercise at its core. It's all about, and this is going to sound like a really cynical take, it's all about driving sales to the game and driving interest in the game. What's the point of investing in an esport for a game you can't buy anymore?
But then again, yeah, I was gonna say, there's still Twitter coverage, there's still articles, or not articles, there's still a lot of, the Forza Motorsport official Twitter is still very active, but there's not much, like compared to other, say, esports titles, there's not much, there's not many articles, there's not much media coverage of the Forza side of racing, and I feel like maybe that's hurting it a little bit. I know, I mean, you, Sappy, is one of the people that still try and write articles about Forza, and your last article about, I think it was about Elo and ranked systems, those get shared in the community, but do they actually go out to like the wider scene? How does that work? I actually wondered how do the numbers look? Do you have insight into that?
As much as I wish I had the numbers, that's not really at the liberty of me to know. So my relationship, at least with content writing, is, well, I'm freelance for one, so I don't have any big ties to, or in this case, esports.net, the site I write for. It's very much, hey, I pick what I want to write about, I write about it, I post it, and we go from there. And whatever traffic it hits, it's traffic it hits. Of course, I'm going to push it out to the relevant communities, but it's front page on the site. So I'm very grateful that they almost have it on the front page. They have a chronological feature. So when my article got posted yesterday morning, it was front page, and I imagine it got a lot of eyes there. So it definitely reaches out wider and does get that wider reach. But to what extent, I guess we'll never know. Just keep doing what we're doing and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's actually nice that sites still try to promote Forza as an esport, because I feel like, yeah, as you said, the game not being available to buy anymore is a big issue still. And yet there are still sites that try to get people to read about the Forza side of things, because there are a lot of very good, talented drivers in the scene that are just waiting to dip their toes into the new game and see what they can do. And as we said last time, again, a lot of them are kind of running away to Sims, but maybe we'll come back. That's exactly the same thing I said last time, but yeah, maybe. A man can dream, you know?
Maybe that's sort of like what's happening with Forza, is that When they leave the game, like it was declared like end of life in 21, you then have 2 years of drivers sat there racing the same races, the same cars, and eventually they're going to get bored and go to other games. But
Isn't
the
it the
thing is,
same in Sims though? The same races, the same cars.
yeah, but if you look at, say, something like Assetto Corsa Competizione compared
Mhm.
to Forza Motorsport 7, you have massive races, you have massive qualifying, it's all sim based, and maybe that's what the faster drivers want. Maybe they're looking to move up, so they then ditch FM7, which then has a lack of really quick drivers that are eager and hungry, and they just go off to other sims to race because there's more people in the races and more people in them communities.
Do you think we're being harsh on the game for by comparing it to actual Sims? Is it actually because we're hoping for the new game to be more sim-like, or where does that come from? Because I feel like we've been, or a lot of the community has been comparing FM7 to ACC, to maybe not to iRacing, but to ACC a lot. I feel like, and is it, or I feel like people are forgetting that GT7 is supposed to be theoretically the main competition, and that's a bit more arcadey. I don't know. I feel
Yeah.
like we're being a bit too harsh.
I do feel like as well, like we're looking at it too much from a sim driver lens in some cases. By all means, people have comparisons between FM7 and ACC, but that's because, at least from the driver's perspective, when you tie that in with what Warner said about drivers being hungry and eager and wanting to get better, that's the natural progression in terms of, I'd say, the ratio of arcade to sim. The natural next step is something like ACC. You put them on a line. 1 out of 10 is like hyper arcadey. You're looking at things like Need for Speed, and then 10 out of 10 is looking at the most like hyper realistic sims, which then you get into like custom builds of R Factor they use in F1 simulators and official training. You look at that kind of stuff. Forza Motorsport sits, I'd say, 6 or 7 on that because it is mostly simulation, where Horizon 5 is like the true normal. It's like slap bang in the middle. Motorsport is like a 6 or a 7, and then you get to ACC, which is just that natural next step. I think a lot of people are hoping for the next game to be a bit more sim-like, or at least be a lot more authentic feeling on wheel. I know that was a big thing when FM7 came out, and over its lifespans, like the wheel kind of felt like it was there but not intrinsically built in. If that
I
makes
tried
sense.
it. I tried it since the last episode, and it was literally undrivable. I was doing some iRacing practice, and I decided to go for it, and I couldn't get through one corner without spinning out. It was impossible. It's impossible. I don't know why. Maybe just it's the settings, but yeah, it feels it feels too responsive. Actually, I don't know. I don't know how top players do it, because there's a lot of very, very, very good players on wheel. But yeah,
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know.
and there's massive talents on wheel, and this is what we're saying about that natural progression. I think you tie in the end of life conversation that we had around Forza Motorsport 7, and you kind of realize that it's almost it's self-explanatory in and of itself. You've got drivers who are eager and hungry to get better and faster, and then you've got a game that is end of life. End of life. There is nothing to push further for because the game is no longer being supported. So you go somewhere where it is. I don't think that so many drivers are flocking to other games necessarily because it's like suddenly FM7 is this horrible game. Far from it, in fact.
No, yeah,
But I do think it's a case of drivers having the drive, there's actually no other word for it, to get better, to get faster, and they want to go somewhere where they're going to build themselves, get recognized, grow their skill. And why I'm hoping that Forza Motorsport 2023, since it doesn't have a number, we're affectionately dubbing it with a much bigger one, where that comes in, I hope they go for a more esports slant where it doesn't have the number. It's not bound by time. I hope they have the license length they need to support it for a long time, and bring back those FM7 drivers who maybe went elsewhere.
Maybe they get some GT7 Academy or GT Academy going on, some partnership. That thing, does it still exist? I don't think it does, right? It was like a GT5, GT6 thing, or maybe GT Sport.
I want to say it still is a thing.
Oh, is it?
But I don't know. Although, side note, you've seen the trailers for the movie.
Yes, I have. That's why I remembered it.
Yes. Oh, dude, I'm looking forward to that. We need more racing game movies.
Yes, that would be amazing.
We need more. It's that simple.
Yeah, and we want them to be accurate. I know most people, maybe I'm sounding like a douche a little bit, but most people, you know, the normies, they don't know a lot of like the intricacies. But seeing that the new movie is, I think they are working with Nissan, right?
Their official, I think it's the official partner of GT Academy to begin with.
It is. So. I really do hope it's going to be accurate. And and I really, of course, hope it's going to be a good movie. But yeah, maybe they get something like that going, like some esports academy thing.
I really hope it does well, just because if nothing else, it opens the door for other franchises to have a stab at it. I know that the last technically racing game movie we had was Need for Speed, and the funny guy from the Breaking Bad show.
I haven't watched it. I have not watched it.
Okay, I won't spoil. But that's all right. Hot take here. That was genuinely a good movie. I found.
Okay.
I found that genuinely a good movie. Everyone rips into it. It's corny as hell. It's cheesy as hell. But when was Need for Speed not corny and cheesy as hell?
Like Fast and Furious.
Like, have you not paid attention to the franchise? This is literally their whole shtick.
That's it. That's what it's supposed to be. People just don't get it. On the other hand, you have the Ford v Ferrari movie or whatever the name was, which is like the more realistic style. Very good casting, obviously. But yeah, since those two. Oh, actually, maybe our community has been getting a lot of movies. We just forgot those existed, or think they are too far back for us to remember now. Because the last movie was Need for Speed, and that wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah, I just want to see more specifically like racing game movies.
Oh yeah,
and even like Gran Turismo. There looks like they're properly leaning into the esports side of things.
Oh yeah,
and I'm living for it. I am absolutely living for it right now. So I really hope it does well.
I saw some drifting shots though, and I don't like that. I hope please don't mess this up, man. Please. I beg.
It better do well. But something that occurred to me, and speaking of Gran Turismo, obviously we're on Gran Turismo 7 now, it's had its ups and downs. I think that Gran Turismo 7 will have its day. And that's having its day, and it's on the wind down. But Forza Motorsport, because it doesn't have a number, and in fact, Garo, beautiful editor, man behind the camera, he dubs it perfectly. It doesn't have a number, like a numbered sequel, and it doesn't necessarily have a year tied to it. So I'm very much thinking and hoping, and what they're setting up for is like a long-term live service thing. And if they do, then they are esports-wise set.
Oh, if they get the money for marketing, because I feel like the game. I mean, people have been dubbing F1 22 like one of the worst F1 games, and yet it still is very popular as an esport. So I feel like there's a lot of the popularity of an esport is just the money that's put into it. No. Absolutely,
it's a money game. It's a marketing game. It is very much based on its partnerships as well. So F122, it can be a trash game, but by the fact that it's the only Formula One game, it's an exclusive license,
Yeah.
then it kind of wins by default regardless. It's going to have esports coverage and it's going to have that level of publicity no matter what you do.
Even without anti-cheat. Which
Even
is
without
ruining the
anti-cheat.
competition. Have you guys actually seen that the guy that created the cheats, which are, I think they suspend the process of the anti-cheat until the game loads or whatever it is. He said that 70%, like he estimates 70% of the pro scene is using some external programs. 70% of the top scene. Imagine.
Jeez. I think because it is extremely easy. I'm not gonna jump into the hyper specifics of how to do it because this isn't a tutorial. But it is extremely easy to manipulate the game, to basically manipulate most, if not all, values. So grip values, acceleration, everything from like performance to like rigidity of your car. You can make your wings 10% stiffer. So if you get an offender bender, lack of fenders, never mind. But if you get into a collision, you can increase the chances of you not losing an end plate and your opponent definitely losing an end plate.
Oh, yeah.
It's things like that. And I would not be surprised because of how easy it is. But I also think that, like we were talking about earlier with the trust system, if you are at the top level of driving, and this is why we do see cheaters in like top leagues in like PSGL, WOR, tier 3, tier 2, F1, F2, etc. You do see cheats in there at some of the higher tiers, but when you get to the top, there is simply too much to lose. You have everything on the line, and as much as I think drivers are hungry for that advantage, it's simply too risky, because if you get caught, that is your life over. Like I saw Thomas Ronhart, right?
Yeah,
he
of
got
course.
a lot of cheating allegations. But on the flip side of it, you literally have a kid, wasn't even, I don't even think he was 18 at the time, dropped out of school to practice F1 esports. Like, that is not a level of dedication you make, the amount of sacrifice you make, and then go in and like cheat. It simply just does not line up.
Yeah, but then again, in my opinion, or I don't know if it's my opinion, but I feel like the cheating on the top level is much more difficult to spot because those players are just that good. Obviously, you have the other guys that can see when something is wrong. For example, I don't know if you saw that video where one of the other drivers, I don't know who exactly that was, but they were following Thomas through the track, and they were using way more of the track. They were getting better lines, and yet they still couldn't catch him.
Was that Jarno Opmer?
No, that wasn't him. He was only watching him. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
The only one that came to my mind is Caraton, but that's for different reasons.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I'm just saying that his case seems especially suspicious because I think he posted a video where he got world record somewhere on Xbox. Supposedly you can't cheat there, which would make sense because to get into the top level, he has to be a very good driver. He's just getting that extra edge, or maybe not. This is just allegations, obviously. By getting that extra edge, a player who is still, say, top 10, top 20, is just, it's a little bit more. That's why it's so hard to spot, so hard to prove. Unless you have LAN events.
Yeah, say 1 or 2% is still an advantage, but yeah, so tough to spot, especially at the top level. The thing is, you haven't seen. I mean, there's no concrete evidence that he is cheating, I guess, but there's also no concrete evidence he's not. Still inconclusive, and I kind of just want to tie in the whole thing. Just bring back LANs. I'm glad the
Yeah.
pandemic is over because we need to bring back LANs. And
Yeah.
without in-game measures, the best that you can do in that scenario is if you go to, say, the Esports Championship, or heck, even final rounds of challenges, if you want to go that far, simply just have them on like monitored rigs in a set location. Just fully LAN it, because that's the ultimate way to validate that nobody's cheating, because you don't control the system, the organizers do. And the organizers, and this is like a little bit behind the curtain for event management, and if you have like LANs, they basically pull from the same image. So you have a single image of a computer setup, like the programs on it, what
Yeah.
is and isn't allowed to run. Um, all of the computers pull off that same image in terms of like setting themselves up. Once they are set up, they are like, of course, accounting for like personal settings like game sense, etc. They're locked in. Like you can't tamper with anything else.
Yeah.
Um,
That's with
so
every esport, right? Every
yeah,
esports
and that's
live
the case
work
with
like that.
that's the case with pretty much every esport. Yeah. And I even go further, because you get into the realm of exclusive esports builds of games as well, where they have other features taken out. So I have never seen the esports build of F122, but it's safe to assume that the main things they include are like improved spectator cams, improved like spectator options, um,
Like the
and
dev tools that we saw in FH5, the dev
yeah,
zero.
yeah, it's a almost like a DevTools kind of thing. And then they remove the stuff that's external of the actual esport. So all the F1 life stuff gone, supercars
Yeah.
gone, everything single player wise gone. It's just built for the esport and
From
nothing
the
else. It's
ground
like
up for that. Yeah.
he pulled out the line. Okay, never mind.
Of course. It has to
Argument
happen
destroyed.
every episode. I'm sorry. That's the rule from now on. Okay,
No.
don't quote me on that. I might break it. I was actually wondering that this is jumping to a bit of a different topic. Unless you guys, yeah, have a point to make. Maybe I was gonna ask, because Sappy teaches esports. I was gonna ask, do you guys have like practical stuff, like for example racing games or I don't know, CS:GO or whatever? Like how does that work? Because I feel like there's like not much has been talked about it, and most of it is just chatter when it comes to, you know, how bad it is for children that esports is being taught in schools. Like, how does that work really?
I mean, the first things to get out of the way with that is because there's a lot of levels to it.
Yeah.
First things first, not just playing games.
Oh,
I've
of
said it
course.
so many times at parents' evenings, and I've said it so many times at open evenings. It is not just playing games for 2 years and coming out with a qualification. The second thing is, as much as I love CS:GO, where I teach, it's colleges, and that's like 16 to 18 in the UK. So unfortunately, we can't get CS. We use Valorant
Oh,
instead.
true. Wait,
Um,
Valorant is not PG-18?
no,
Oh, okay. I
No,
didn't know that.
and in fact, this is kind of a side note. I am both happy and sad that for CS2, they didn't change it from Ts and CTs to attack and defense. I would have liked to see like a college esports mode, because I feel like that change alone of the names would have done a lot better to get it into college esports, and I know so many people want that. But in terms of the actual games that we do have now, it's things like Rocket League, it's things like Val League of Legends is taught.
Okay.
Um, Overwatch as well is kind of one of the core ones, and you got
Oh, really? Overwatch still?
yeah, say it's Overwatch still has its place, and for most people
Dota.
I tried, I tried. but
Fortnite.
yeah, few. But yeah, in terms of actually how it works, it's not so much the games aspect. In fact, I almost feel guilty to say this, but the games aspect of it takes a bit of a back seat. What it really is how to succeed in that industry, and it is a business at the end of the day. It's
Yeah.
very business heavy. It's very media centric. So you not so much are digging into like mechanics of games, although there is a unit dedicated to that, and I get to teach it, which makes me very happy. But there is a lot of stuff like how to succeed in content, how to use Photoshop, Premiere, how to like set yourself up with a business, because you got to think how much of esports is self-employed now. All of the content creators, all of the agencies, that starts with a guy saying, hey, I want to make this thing, let's make this thing. That's the entire industry. So you learn a lot of business skills, you learn a lot of media skills. Really, it is almost like a business and media course, but with an esports coat of paint, if that helps explain it for people.
So it's like an IT course with a graphic design thing, but for esports this time. So that makes sense. That puts,
in a way.
That's just a little bit more light on it, because I feel like the esports colleges or schools or whatever, they have a very, very bad image. And as you said, it's not only about just gaming. I always wondered the gaming side of things. Like say someone only plays Terraria or Minecraft, or no, that's a very bad example. Say someone only plays racing games. Do they have anything to do there, or are those like classes, League of Legends class, like CS:GO class? I sound like a parent that's trying to get to know what this is about. But I really want to know.
I've got my script.
Yes, please.
I don't know why I pulled out that's not even related.
I'm here for everyone that's watching that doesn't know. Just I'm you now.
Okay, but with it, the main thing is that those are the core games, and that's basically dictated by the governing body we have. So British Esports, literally British Esports, is like they basically oversee like the course itself, how it's run. They oversee like what games are played, what games are in competition, because those 4 games I mentioned, those are in active competition. Like they run student championships across the UK.
Oh, okay.
So where the majority of the playing comes in is students saying, "Hey, I wanna play in the team. I'm plat, I'm diamond, I'm whatever rank. I want to get involved." And you join up a team and you go against some of the other colleges, universities in the UK. That's where most of the gameplay side of it is. But in terms of other games, it's a tough one, because obviously we can't cater to every single genre and subgenre, because otherwise, well, for one, as a teacher, how the heck am I going to do my job? Because I need to know games at a fairly deep level in order to teach them in terms of skills, things like that. Like I've done a lot of research into things like CS. I've done a lot of research into VAL, Overwatch. I've got a colleague who handles the other games, and if we had that case for like 20, 25 games, you can see how it becomes an absolute ant's nest. But that doesn't mean you can't involve other games. Like one thing we're trying to get at the moment is get a couple of rigs, like a couple of sim rigs in the classroom.
That would be amazing.
That would be good.
I'm hoping that deal goes through. Very biased.
Yeah, of course.
But there's a lot to it in terms of like what we do cover, what we don't cover. It's surprisingly a lot of rules as well, because you had to jump through a lot of hoops to make it an official qualification, like that's actually recognized as a field of study. You had to jump through a lot of hoops.
Okay, yeah, because do you have to know how to play those games? You're probably getting schooled by students when it comes to like deep knowledge of League of Legends and stuff like that, because you would have to know each of those games at a very, very deep level, right? Just play hundreds of hours of each of them to be able to yeah. So that makes sense that you teach like general stuff about gaming in general. I know you said a couple times that you showed your classroom some Mars clips, you know, for the you know?
I may have shown a few clips. I'm slowly I'm slowly rooting Forza's way into the minds of the youth and corrupting
Oh my
them
god.
with skill
They
issue.
know his name now. He's famous now in colleges.
Yeah, specifically the meme clips. Don't get ahead of yourself, Mars.
Of
Um,
course. Of course. Very good.
but yeah, you have to invest a lot. You don't necessarily need to come in knowing the games.
Hmm.
The big thing, that's the other half of the stigma. You don't have to be good at games to get involved with the course.
Okay.
It's very much this is an aspect of the course. There's a unit dedicated to getting better at games, but in fact, sometimes I see the inverse where some of the best students in the class are sitting there like, yeah, I play Minecraft once a week.
Okay.
No esports titles to their name, but yet they do really well because they enjoy the industry, they enjoy like the event side of it, or they enjoy the business side, and they get super invested. It
Hmm.
is really great to see, and I'm hoping, especially now that the mainstream is taking notice, see the Gran Turismo movie, the esports properly gets its light shone on it, like in the big time, as it's just got bigger and bigger. I mean, if you got through the education system, you can do anything.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why a lot of those courses that you mentioned, like Photoshop and just setting yourself up to be successful in the game that you're or in the part of the industry that you want to be in, and not really just getting good at the game, because that's what the kids do anyway, right? They just sit there and play the games that they want to play. God,
Yeah, I mean,
I
the
sound like
the classes.
my parents. Oh my god.
The class usually starts with a reality check.
Hmm.
Specifically, look, I know some of you may have come here under the pretense you're going to come out a pro player. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, you're not coming out of here a pro player. Just because the chance of you becoming a pro player is like 0.001% at this
Oh yeah.
stage. Because if, and I'm not being funny, but if you are in this college, instead of being scouted and being part of a team right now,
You already failed.
no,
Well.
not that you've already failed because you see late bloomers. In fact, it's not uncommon that, I mentioned the student championships earlier.
Hmm.
The teams that get to the finals, there are some big names there because they are live like LAN finals.
Hmm.
And there are some big names. There are some big esports reps there. Like I know Fnatic goes there religiously, for instance, because they have a UK base in London.
Hmm.
So big teams do take notice. They see talent there. They are going to scout it out. So you haven't failed, but you need to temper expectations. Like
Hmm.
it's not a case of coming out a pro player. It's not a case of coming out just playing 2 years of video games or 1 year of video games and then having a qualification. There is a lot more work than I think people perceive at first. But that kind of goes the same for the entire esports and content industry. Everyone sees the front side of it, but they don't see, let's say, your favorite YouTuber or your favorite Forza creator who's turned it into a full-time job. They don't see the amount of editing. They don't see the amount of planning that goes into, say, social media.
Hmm.
They don't see the amount of forecasting, planning, making sure that they've got content rationed out. If they're going on holiday, then they've got to work double overtime to cover the content gap. It's all these things that they don't see that you then learn very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way. Just Microsoft has deals, or schools have deals with Microsoft for their software. Just get a deal. Just make a collegiate league of FM8 or the new Forza Motorsport.
I'm hoping to. I'm
That
hoping
would
to
be
cook. I'm
be
hoping to cook.
amazing. That would be amazing. That would be such a big W.
Mm.
Just have people, because I feel like a lot of people underestimate how big the racing community is, because it's so kind of disconnected from, like, say, your usual esports, the games that don't really fall into any category, or just shooters, that you don't see how big it is until you get into it. I really thought, like, before getting into Forza, I really thought the competitive racing community, like, basically didn't exist, and yet here it is in all its glory. Everything, Sims, Forza, arcade games, Trackmania, it's huge. There's so much potential just waiting to be
Yeah,
used.
I mean, it's like you got so much. There's a whole world out there. I mean, Trackmania World Cup, for instance, what you think is a very solo game, and very game about basically speed running, is suddenly this massive thing. It has a whole competitive format. It's got live lands and league going all across Europe, and America as well. But I think that, and say Green hits it on the head in our live chat right now, that unfortunately, racing games, when it comes to esports, they're kind of like that one kid at the lunch table that's sitting on the end. Everyone is like next to the wall, chilling out, playing a game of Risk together, and then you got that one kid who's on the end who still has every right to be there, but it's kind of just in his own little bubble, and it's kind of sad in some ways.
That's why you have Trackmania, or say Trackmania, or even Rocket League. Those games that kind of sit in between. They're fit to be an esports in an esport in itself, and not like not just a electronic or however you want to say, a digital version of a real sport. Because I think games like FIFA also don't do very well in the virtual world. Maybe people just don't like seeing things that they can see in real life online. I don't know what the issue is with that.
Well, I think like esports that are tied to an existing IP already, they, like we were saying earlier with F122, the game can be trash. The game can be absolute dog water. But because it's already tied to an existing IP that people love, people are going to get it anyway. And you look at the FIFA games just in general. Are they what I consider good quality games?
No.
Given everything that's transpired with them and the amount of progress, no. But because they're so tied to people's interests and what people want to do, they are going to get massive sales and they're going to get esports presence just regardless of them being good, because they are being them. They are the only one doing it.
I think what helps FIFA is they have so many people chucking out, oh, this is the best custom tactics and stuff. But then FIFA will do an update and that tactic is gone. So you have all these creators then trying to find the next best tactic, and they're just constantly chucking out content. And I think that's something where the racing industry sort of falls down on, because FIFA you can do every single day, whereas the racing communities only have a race sort of once a week, once every 2 weeks. It's not all the time like Call of Duty might be. You might upload a montage or something like that. Or FIFA, you might upload loads of games or have a competitive league in that you play in every week.
Maybe it's
With
not enough of a
racing,
sim
it's different.
of real football. I don't know. It's hard to say.
And even just coming off of that, the whole idea of like changing and tinkering things around. You look at, for example, Overwatch again. The reason Overwatch has still got the player base it has is for that exact reason as well. Part of it
Does
is
it actually? Because I thought it died.
Well, you have a meta, right? Every game has a meta, which is an acronym, by the way.
Racing games as well.
Yeah, it stands for most effective tactics available. So a little bit trivia for you there. But as soon as people get used to a certain meta, they will change things slightly that breaks that meta and forces players to come back and find a new one. That's what keeps the hardcores and the invested people playing. Racing games, you unfortunately can't really do that because you're kind of bound by realism. And unless you're working off like drivers rather than cars, like adjusting driver ratings, you can't suddenly say, oh yeah, by the way, the Ferrari 458 has 30 less horsepower now, Lamau. You can't do that. That's just, you are bound by realism, and that means that, unfortunately, and through no fault of the devs or through fault of their doing, because these are the rules that you have to conform to, you have a situation where you have a meta, but you're not allowed to change it.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, there are BOPs in the actual Sims. BOPs, balance of performance, for people that don't know. There are BOPs for certain races, for actually every race. For example, in iRacing, but in those games, in iRacing ACC, where they change the tire model, people just post their lap and just add the patch number to it, and everyone is happy. And when something physics related. It is changed in Forza in FH5. The whole leaderboard system, it just falls apart, right? Like some cars just become not viable anymore. And instead of them being removed from the leaderboards because of that, or just the leaderboards being updated after each physics update, it just like kinda is left there.
Mm.
Is
Do
it
you
that
remember
is the Tycoon, yeah, the electric car, is that removed? I don't think it is, right?
I don't know, but do you remember the although not strictly racing related, the mountain, the drift zone on the mountain, the
Yeah.
volcano?
Oh, yeah. True.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that was probably, if we want to talk changes, yes, you had some minor physics changes. I want to say series 8 and 9, where some cars suddenly got a lot more top heavy, were easier to flip. I think the biggest example of what makes it break is like with the drift mode. The drift score got adjusted in terms of how it was awarded, and that because the leaderboards weren't changed or wiped or anything like that, they basically became permanent records because under the new scoring system, like the adjustments to the scoring system, you couldn't change, you couldn't get anywhere near some of the scores. Some people tried their best, but that didn't happen, sadly.
That was Why was that? That was because what you used to not get points on certain parts of the road, and they just adjusted it and just lowered it in general. But I think I think I heard some talk about them moving it back up a little bit so that the world records are beatable again. Unless that already happened, and I don't have the info.
I think it was mostly to counter all-wheel drive dominance and where people would go literally like 90, 100, 110 degrees into a corner and it would still count as points.
Amazing.
So I think that the actual changes were because you had cars like, this is going to sound stupid to the untrained ear, but the BMW Isetta, that was unironically one of the best drift cars for all-wheel drive in the game.
Is it not anymore?
Well, it still is, but it's not to an egregious extent because of how, without getting too nerdy, basically how the wheels were placed and organized. So two very wide at the front and then two very narrow in the rear. The problem became that you could have crazy angle above the 90 degrees and that would still get a really high score because of the wheel geometry. And in fact, one thing I've noticed with the Forza Tech engine is every single car, regardless of the car, has 4 wheels. If you have a car with 3 wheels, it's just 2 wheels merged together. The exact same space.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you ever... The way I figured this out, because you went back to Forza Horizon 4, the PLP 50. If you go into the pause menu, so you can see in the background your car spinning its wheels, like as it's slowly driving in this sort of ether. On the back of the PLP 50, where it has 1 wheel visually, you can see 2 wheels turning in opposite directions.
No way.
So every single car in the game has 4 wheels, regardless of whether visually it has 3 or heck even 2 if they want to be daring. But 3-wheelers technically have 4. They've just merged 2 of the wheels together.
Oh my god, I didn't know
Even the
that.
Reliant Robin.
Even the Reliant Robin.
I did not want to know that. Oh my god. So what? Does the Reliant Supervan just have more grip because it has 2 wheels?
I don't know how it operates in terms of grip levels.
Yeah, but maybe that's why the PI is so messed up. Maybe that's why the PLP 50 is so good on D class, or is it the other PL? Whatever.
I mean, the PLP 50 is just a very quirky car in itself because you could put the motorcycle engine in it, and basically almost do the equivalent of the Sonic the Hedgehog peel out, where you can rev the car, rev it to max, and then it will just stay at max revs until it hits top speed, even if that top speed's 200 miles an hour.
That's crazy.
It's so tiny and the wheels are so small that it will just do the equivalent of like a peel out, but all the way to VMAX. It's such a quirky car. I unironically love it. It's one of my favorites in the game because it's just so weird and different.
Man, those small quirks of the game sometimes just hit you. Oh, I didn't know about that. That's insane. Same with the it's sport transmission in some cars and it's drift transmission in the electric cars, where it just drops the PI because the game thinks, well, the car can't go faster because here, see that the default settings are like that, so the PI should be lower. I think Gran Turismo's so to speak PI. I don't know what the name is. The system accounts for tuning, right?
It does account for tuning. So it live calculates any time that you make a change in the tuning. And I was actually brainstorming on this, right? I had an idea to fix Forza's tuning problem.
Okay.
Oh.
You have... All right, you're going to have to humor me a little bit here.
Yes.
Oh, God.
I'm waiting. I'm ready.
Instead of one PI, you have two. So your first PI is based on your parts and works exactly the same as it has done in other titles. So that doesn't change. But what you add in its place is what I like to call tuning PI or Evo score or whatever you want to dub it. Basically, depending on your tune and how well you've tuned it, it runs the same simulation as it does to do like 0 to 60, 0 to 100, all these kind of stuff, the little calculations you get in the tuning menu. It runs those simulations and then it adds like extra points. It doesn't add it to the total, but it like tacks it on the end. So if I had an A800 car that was really well tuned compared to an A800 stock tune, it would be like 800 plus 194 and then 800 just blank.
You know what I'm gonna say, right?
What?
I'm gonna say, first of all, power builds and tuning in that is probably would be very hard to balance. And another thing is making cars more undrivable in this game makes them have more pace. So
yeah,
if you look at the system right now, when it calculates every time you change something, it isn't quite, it's not very satisfying. Like, you just don't look at those numbers because they don't mean anything.
Yeah,
how do you fix that? How do you fix that in a game that is essentially kind of an arcade version of a sim, so to speak? So simcade, yes.
I mean, the simulation itself does need improvement. So I know a lot of power builds, you get like 0 to 60 failed, where they just
that's amazing.
you just can't get control of the car from the AI's perspective.
Yeah, and it simulates it every time you reload the tuning menu, even if you don't change anything. Like, I don't get it.
Well, I think that's just like a validation thing, and it's actually a lot more annoying. It's kind of just more time consuming and difficult to run it. So for it to check that it hasn't changed, then to just run it even if it hasn't. It's like to run that simulation almost.
Okay, fair enough.
It's just easier to say, upon entering this menu, run the sim, as opposed to, okay, check against a previous value I've got stored, which is just like useless storage. You don't really need it. It gets a bit messy. But the simulation itself does need work. I'm just addressing the PI here. I'm not addressing the wonky simulation, but basically,
I mean, that ties into it, doesn't it?
The problem, though, at its core, is that PI doesn't account for tuning. I think it's its greatest downfall. Is that it's a good system, but once you start to peel into it and actually like explore the layers it has, because it's a really in-depth tuning system. I'm going to say that it is probably the best tuning system I've seen in a game, period. Short of like hardcore sims. It is like the best balance of tuning that I've personally seen.
For sure,
but that kind of plays to its detriment, because without stuff like BOP that accounts for it, you kind of need something in its stead. You kind of need a score of its own for tuning, I think.
Okay, what if you had a score for each type of race? So your car has a separate score for each type of race. Road racing, street is pretty much the same, but I would have dirt, cross country, drift, and drag. And depending on the race that you would go into, it would have just a different PI, because that seems to be the biggest issue, right? The game has to account for your car being all of it at once. It kind of has to find the middle ground.
Congratulations, you've just made Need for Speed Pro Street.
Oh yeah. I'm just that you know, that's me. Hello.
I mean, Pro Street is a banger of a game. Don't get me wrong.
But this
I
is it, but
think
newer, better.
I think you kind of want to, because Forza's whole thing is simplicity, right?
Yeah, it is.
Simplicity is bliss. Like they want to make things like as approachable as possible. Play Pepega mod, by the way, for Pro Street. Not one came out. It's bloody brilliant. But I think that separating out into that level of depth when you've already got the amount of depth that they have in the tuning system is just going to be, for the audience they're trying to hit, just overwhelming.
Oh, but that would only be for the parts, right? So you want to build a road car, you would just look at the road PI only. Or even be able to pick.
But it's the fact you're going to, its presence, regardless of it being relevant or not, is going to get people that are basically saying, right, I want to make a jack of all trades. I want to hit 10 on everything. Because let's be honest, we've had our moments where we've gone into, so like even the older Forza titles, and in the back of your mind, you just like brain switch off. I want 10 everything. I don't care what happens.
I want to make the car for everything. For drift zones, speed zones, like the danger signs, and racing.
I want to make the car.
Yes, the car for everything. The
car of all time.
The dirt CC's hypercar, all-wheel drive, everything.
Final destination, no items, Fox only. Yeah, you want a jack of all trades, but I
We've
think
all been
just
there.
having too much of that front side is going to be just overwhelming. And like you're going to get people who like want to make a road car, but then they flip and they want to go dirt, and they're watching other numbers go down while numbers go up, and we always want the numbers go up.
Yeah, that's the difficult, to find a bridge between us, the professional racers, and the casual audience. Speaking of a bridge, Street Wars, you were gonna spill the tea. Let us know what's up.
There's tea.
Oh yeah, there's tea. Yeah, so remember that little discussion we had about no more tiers and stuff like that? That's official now.
Very good.
So the big things are that no more tiers, back to one map, no more pro tier, no more tier 2 stuff, no more confusion, basically.
Very good.
That
Very nice.
is the big thing. The other main thing I'd say is that Fighter Elo's coming in its place. So of course, once that is validated and ready to go, that's when the new that's when the new season rolls around. That's the only reason why I've been vague on the new season coming, is because that's what it's dependent on. So,
are you allowed to be less vague, or?
Well, that depends on when Fighter Elo is ready.
Fair enough.
I'm genuinely being vague on the purpose of I don't know when it's going to be ready. I know it's in the near future, but I genuinely don't know. I know they're in the backdating process right now.
Yeah.
So
how far through the backdating process are they?
That I could not tell you because I'm not in the room. I'm not in the dungeon slaving away at it myself.
We know who is.
Whole
amazing.
new, yeah, they're amazing. But whole new like onboarding. So for now, or hopefully, we won't need role requests anymore. People can self-assign unless you're getting added to teams or changing teams. People can fully self-assign like free agent, tuner, content creator, painter, and eventually the blacklist as well. You can self-assign to that. We'll be expanding
that's a
the
big
staff
one.
team. Rally Adventure is going to be added to the map. We've got a couple more back-end changes, so like asset packs and full like casting rigs, so properly pushing the social side of things this time round too.
I'm very glad to hear that.
Because that's kind of one thing it was missing, and eventually we'll be looking at doing some special events. So there is something in fact cooking right now on the tier 2 side of things that could potentially be the big air quotes send-off for the tier 2 map.
Okay, can you say what it is?
This, I want to preface this by saying this was not my idea. This was the child of four different tier 2 teams. So you had MT2, you had SR1's Street Wars team, you had Nightfall, and you had FRT. Basically, what they're all doing is where you've got people on the map, where you've got your territories, they're all placing down one territory as like a bargaining chip, like you pay to play, winner takes
Okay.
all. 4 territories on the map to play for, 4 teams. Each team gets 1 race spec to pick from their territory. So, of course, if you're staking, let's say, the volcano area, you could, if you want, you could do the bouncy Impala race. You can do that.
Oh, no.
I'm not saying you should,
My
but you
dream car.
can.
My dream car, Impala.
Impala, my beloved.
Oh,
You
that one
can
would
do
say.
that. I'm not
Yeah.
saying you should, but you can.
Okay.
Yeah, but the team staking their territory basically has full control of the race that goes on there. Hoping to make that into a big event. I'm just finalizing a couple of things on the back end. The format itself, ready to go. And in fact, probably have the green light. We just need to know a date. We can get the socials rolling when is good for them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's going to be a pretty big event. If we can get Caster on it potentially as well, it's going to be even bigger.
Could do the same
how
thing with
long
the
are these
Blacklist
races?
Battle Royale, right? It's 10 minutes in Street Wars, right?
What, per race?
Yeah, that's what Werner asked.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. We're going to be locking in a new format with Season 3 as well. I kind of forgot to mention. So it's kind of been wishy-washy up till this point as to what you can run. The new format for Season 3 is going to be 3 10-minute races. So that way...
Always 3. No more.
Yeah, 3 10-minute races. Basically, where people are running 4, people are running 5... I have to do the spreads and the results by hand. I don't have a nice fancy automated system. This is hell.
Oh, we had to practice for that. We had a 5-race race or 5-race clash between teams. That was never.
Yeah, and the results and the back end admin for that is hell.
Oh yeah.
So
I can imagine.
3 races, 10 minutes. And that way, it's uniform, and it's a good balance as well between like the 50-odd minutes of Racing Haven and the 2 times 30 minutes of Team Wars. It's a nice stepping stone.
Yeah. I mean, it would be an hour, but as you know, we made it 50 minutes, so it's kind of easier to transition between the divisions from D2, D3 into D1 casts. Yeah, it's... We wanted to do an hour. Maybe we'll do more when the new game comes out. Obviously, maybe we'll cook some special events as well.
And that is what we call a masterclass in subtext.
Yes,
it's good to. I think just beyond that, of course, I don't want to self-reference here, but
please do.
One thing that the article that I wrote, one thing that I kind of praise, and I kind of just want to bring it up again here. Just the fact that everyone's willing to work together. I mean, it could very easily be a case of I run Street Wars in isolation, Rare, don't talk to me. Racing Haven, they're just the snooty guys who do enduros. And then Team Wars, they think they're all that. But no, everyone works together. Everyone's chill. Everyone's like really cooperative. And as a result, we've got these kind of projects that interweave into one another. We've got that kind of organic progression, so from like HRA to Street Wars with shorter races but more of them, and then to Racing Haven with, say, longer races, 2 times 30 for Team Wars. It's such a nice thing to see, because this is just what happens when cool people do cool things. And then you've got HTCC jumping in the mix as well, offering even more variety to the whole game. Like with arguably the closest motorsport type format we've seen in Horizon.
Oh yeah,
and it's just awesome to see.
Yeah, that is kind of the beauty of. I'm gonna steal this idea from chat, but that's kind of the beauty of the community, that we promote each other. The leagues promote themselves or each other, because the scene is kind of small still, and before it hopefully gets bigger. Everyone can get to know every single league. Just everyone can be in all the servers. Everyone knows each other. It's a very cozy place to be.
Yeah, it is. In a word, it is cozy.
Very cozy.
I do like that. Of course, it's had its moments in the sun. It's had big standout events like Honda Fan Cup, for instance. That was a big deal. Got a lot of eyes on Horizon 5 as a competitive format as well, which I do applaud considering they were originally going for a very casual style. And even now, I mean, you look at the Series 20 update, the Oval, right? And they've been running like proper Oval rivals on the social media and competitions. I think that's
finally
awesome.
Oh my god, yes. Finally. I'm just and FH is because like we have to remember that FH5 is still one of, if not the most, correct me if I'm wrong, the biggest game from Microsoft right now, right? Is it? Because it was the biggest title when it launched.
I would say so overall.
So far.
And you never hear about it. Like those big games that come out, those AAA titles, which this one is, those AAA titles that come out, they get such big of spotlight in media, and FH5 is just quietly there, the biggest game. You know, it's just sitting there for people that want to play it, having
just
fun.
Chilling.
Yeah, it's that quiet workhorse almost. It doesn't always get the spotlight, but it chugs away silently in the background. For better or for worse in some cases, I think.
So that makes me hopeful.
I hope so too. I think if nothing else, as we've said a few times, the Forza Motorsport 2023 rendition and hopefully very far beyond. I do hope that they lean big into esports. I hope that they lean big into maybe getting FRC back up and running. I would, for one, love to. I mean, it's on my bucket list. I'm going to be just straight with you fellas. It is one of my dreams if I ever got to commentate in the box for anything even remotely related to FRC.
That would be amazing.
That's even probably, I hazard a guess, as that's what got me into commentating to some degree, specifically Forza. It's on the bucket list for sure, but I hope they push big for esports. I really do, because, and this is something I've said time and time again since we had that discussion about the removal of ranked when the game first came out. Your competitive players, your top players, are your biggest spokespeople. They are your pundits. They are the people that will just raw either by like knowledge, talent, or just like infectious enthusiasm for the game. They are what brings people in. You need that end game to support that.
They have the most hours. They just keep playing.
Yeah, they're the most dedicated. They're the most vocal, for better or worse. And they are going to ultimately be your mouthpiece to the wider community, because when you go to see who and what you should be playing, you don't go to the official sources. You go to a streamer you like. You go to a popular streamer if they're playing that game, and they say, hey, what do you think? Or you go to a driver who you know is talented at said game, and you say, hey, what do you think of this game? Should I get invested in it? If they tell you no, and they tell their friends and their friends, it very much becomes a much wider problem. And without wanting to get too deep into it, because I feel like there's another episode's worth of material there all on its own, I think one of the big asterisks and caveats with Horizon 5 and why it's got that silent workhorse treatment is, apart from very edge cases like HFC, because remember that's Honda's doing, that's not specifically the devs and publishers, etc. is doing, it's kind of cut out that competitive aspect and effectively imposed an artificial ceiling.
I mean, to be honest, it is kind of natural to come into FH5 and not do the competitive things. So when a streamer tries FH5, they don't really, they usually do like what, free roam, random races, AI shenanigans, whatever. And this makes me feel, though, this makes me hopeful that maybe the new game, with its natural kind of more esports, more motorsports feel, is gonna get the you know, the how do you say it, the media coverage, the advert treatment. Yeah, the full treatment. It's gonna get advertised to the people that kind of should be playing the game, not to gatekeep, you know. to people that are actually interested in those kind of things, to the sim players even. We'll see.
Well, we'll see. Gaslight, gatekeep, gone tires.
Yeah.
And on that lovely note,
yeah, gaslight the developers into thinking that we are the main force that's driving the game forward. Yes, let's just do it.
yes,
Really.
pretty good. But on that beautiful note, I think we are at that point where the editors kind of not physically but almost like metaphorically tapping the watch, saying, "All right, boys, come on now." So, of course, goes without saying, but check us out on the socials. Of course, you'll hear this as well: Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, all that good stuff. YouTube podcast potentially, depending
It's coming
on
out, right?
when that drops. You can expect to see us on there. It's gonna be some top stuff. Of course, if you want to catch these, live, we've got our Twitch, so twitch.tv/racinghaven every Tuesday at is it 7 p.m. GMT because timing is weird.
Every Tuesday?
Every other Tuesday.
Every other Tuesday. I do this every time.
Every time.
Look, you have your We Built the Ground Up. I have my every Tuesday. Okay, we have our rituals. We have our episode rituals. But on that beautiful note, same time 2 weeks, boys.
Same time 2 weeks.
See
Have
you
a
in
good
2
one,
weeks.
everyone.